Being part of a HYROX relay team is a great way to compete with friends or family. If you're watching this, then you likely already know that a HYROX relay team consists of 4 people, each of whom complete 25% of the race. By that we mean they each do 2 of the 1K runs and the 2 corresponding workstations. That of course means that while one of your team members is out there running, jumping, pushing or pulling, the other 3 of you are waiting until it's your turn, and that means you'll be waiting in the relay transition area. The good news is, in this tutorial, we're going to walk you through the 3 things you need to know about the HYROX relay transition area so that it's stress-free and works like clockwork for you. Oh, and if you watch this tutorial all the way to the end, there's a bonus tip for you as well. Okay, you can think about the relay transition area having 2 distinct parts, the holding area and the transition chute. You can think of this as the high-5 superhighway. This is where the actual transition takes place and features 2 lanes, the in lane and the out lane, separated by a barricade. Now it's important for you to know that there is a timing loop at the in lane of the transition chute. That's how we know your inbound racer has arrived. And there's another timing loop that divides the holding area with the out lane where you'll be waiting. This will be clearly marked with coloured tape on the floor. Now why is this important? Because the outgoing racer cannot cross from the holding area and into the out lane until the inbound racer has entered the transition chute in the in lane. If you do, the system will detect that and you'll get a penalty, and we don't want you to get a penalty. Okay, we'll come back to that shortly. In simple terms, once the race is underway, there should always be 1 of your team out on the course and 3 of you in the holding area. We suggest the next racer is watching the clock and keeping an eye out for the incoming athlete. Now what do we mean by that? Well, let's say your first team member is out completing run 1 and the ski erg workstation. The second team member, who will of course be completing run 2 and the sled push, they should make their way towards the edge of the transition chute. Now remember, this will be clearly marked with colour tape on the floor, and that's the timing loop. Now this is really important. That timing loop will be activated when the timing chip on your ankle crosses it, i.e. when you cross the tape, our timing system knows it. So, as you already know, you must not cross that tape or the timing loop before your inbound racer has entered the transition chute. Now we understand it can be nerve-wracking if you're next to go and you're waiting. But penalties aside, there's actually no advantage by moving into the transition chute until your inbound team member has entered the in lane. Not only will you get a penalty, but it literally takes less than 2 seconds to move from the holding area to the out lane. You have plenty of time. So once you see that your inbound team member has entered the in lane of the transition chute, you'll be able to enter the out lane, and you'll be ready to high-five them as you complete your transition and zoom out and make your way through the out arch and onto the run course. Now the inbound athlete who has just been high-fived must move straight back to the holding area, find their other 2 team members and bask in the glory of what they've just achieved. Actually, there is one exception to this rule, but we'll come back to that. Now the inbound athlete's arrival in the holding area, it actually triggers when the next team member should make their way towards, and not into, the transition chute and keep their eyes peeled for their inbound team member who they'll soon be high-fiving. But here's a handy hint. You've usually got more time than you think. I mean, ask yourself this. How long will it take your team member to run 1 kilometre, complete the workstation and get back to the transition area? Well, as you've been training together in the lead up to your race, you can probably answer that question better than we can. What's our point? If you keep an eye on the time, it'll reduce your stress levels as you make your way towards the transition chute. What we know for sure is this: if you follow this advice in this tutorial, it works like clockwork. Now let's get back to that exception to the rule when the inbound athlete enters the in lane of the transition chute. If a team member is doing back-to-back runs and workstations, for example, they're doing both 1 and 2, then there won't be anyone waiting for them in the transition chute, but they must still come back into the in lane, make their way all the way to the end, go around the turn point, and then all the way back down the out lane and out of the out arch. Now why is this important? Because of the timing loop that knows when each of you come into the in lane. If your back-to-back team member skips the transition chute, they'll pick up a penalty. And again, we don't want you to get a penalty. So always come into and out of the transition chute if you're doing back-to-back workstations. Okay, that's how the relay transition works. It can feel a little bit overwhelming if this is your first time, but don't stress. We'll have a small army of crew there to help make sure everything runs silky smooth. Your best bet is to focus on cheering your team members and getting ready to race. Now, what about that bonus we promised you? One of the most fun parts of a relay team is running up onto the finisher stage together, hand in hand, tunes pumping, the MCs calling your names and jumping as high as you can for the photographers who will be waiting for you. And that's exactly how your race will finish. But how does it work when it's only one team member who completes run 8 and this signature HYROX finish, the wall balls? Well, here's the trick. Once your teammate has left the outlane to start run 8, the three of you can make your way to the relay wall ball entrance by leaving the holding area and navigating your way through the spectator zone. You'll be able to see a large inflatable tower that says wall ball relay entrance at the end of the wall ball station. Again, you've got plenty of time to get there. Once you see your team member enter workstation 8 and pick up their wall ball, one of our crew will let you in so that you can stand under the rig in front of your team member. You can cheer, encourage, heckle or smack talk your team member as they complete their wall balls. And as their final wall ball hits the target and their judge verifies such, you can all run up the finisher ramp together. But just make sure that your team member who did the wall balls is just ever so slightly in front of the rest of you. Why is that? Because it's their timing chip that should cross the timing mat first. They just need to be ever so slightly in front. Okay, that's your bonus tip, and that concludes the relay briefing. If you haven't already, make sure you share this tutorial with your team members or anyone who you know is competing in the relay division. With that said, we can't wait to see you all run onto the finisher stage, leaping in the air for the cameras and being welcomed into the world of HYROX.